Good morning. Welcome to ASI's Tuesday morning show, where ASI's most outspoken editors talk promo products. And we have Andy Cohen here this morning. He's so
Just
outspoken.
A couple editors.
Well, you're so outspoken, we don't need anyone else, I don't think.
That's right. All you got is me. And that's really all you need.
Big news here at ASI today. They're serving a very delectable lunch special, which Andy can't wait to get his hands on. It's grilled cheese and pepperoni sandwich, deep fried. How about that?
Well,
deep fried grilled cheese.
As I said before we got on the air, and so I'll say it now too. Done somewhere else, I think that might be an appealing thing. I could see how that could work.
You don't think our cafeteria could pull it off?
That's my problem.
Well, you mentioned that you would get it at a state fair.
Right.
But maybe it
That's
has
definitely
to be
fair food.
the mode that you're in.
And I'd follow that up by a corn dog.
Okay. All right. Love to party with you at a state fair, Andy Cohen. We have a great show for you today. Ford Sakes is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. Now, Ford is one of our star speakers at the ASI shows this year. He speaks a lot on marketing topics, but today we are going to focus on marketing to different generations. Obviously, we've got a number of generations in the workforce, and he's going to give us some insight on how to market to those different groups and what's different and what's the same. And then, Andy, we're going to talk a little bit about millennials. You've got some myths about millennials that you're going to uncover.
I do indeed.
And we're going to also talk about some social media marketing do's and don'ts. There's a lot of people doing don'ts out there, I will say. So
stay off the don'ts.
I'll warn you about that. But first, let's welcome Ford Sakes to the show. Ford is CEO of Prime Concepts Group, an integrated marketing service firm. And his efforts have helped companies generate a total of over $1 billion in sales worldwide. Good morning, Ford. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And this year, you've gotten to meet a lot of ASI folks at our shows.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. They're my people. They're entrepreneurs interested in helping people.
Yes, they're your peeps. All right. Well, I know you speak on a variety of marketing topics, but we're going to tackle some issues related to generational marketing today. So let's get right into it. Obviously, there are multiple generations in the workforce right now. So let's talk a little bit about marketing to millennials versus Generation Xers and to boomers. How do you see that each group is different in terms of marketing? And are there certain types of messages or things that resonate with each group?
There really is, Melinda. The biggest difference is that everybody can take away from this is, you need to think in terms of what your market wants. And, boomers are motivated differently than Gen X, than Gen Y, than millennials. And what happens is our behaviors, our buying styles are impacted by how we grew up, what was going on during how we grew up. And that's why there is even the generational marketing to begin with. And there's 5 different generations in the marketplace right now. So the biggest way to market to millennials is to realize that they don't respond to hype. They don't respond to the old school, in-your-face, aggressive type of messaging. They respond more to social proof. They want to know what your digital footprint looks like. They're going to do more research. They believe they're more informed before they make a buying decision. So as a business owner, you've got to look at your whole marketing strategy differently.
So, Ford, as you're looking to, or our audience is looking to appeal to each of those 5 generations, as you talked about, are there any specific marketing mediums that you see appealing to each of the generations?
Yes, definitely. I would say fish where the fish are. Obviously millennials are going to use mobile devices and they're going to use different means. So fishing where the fish are really has to do with what do you know about your target prospect first. So the first thing I would say as an action step is to get really clear on the behaviors and the statistics of your target market. So who are they? And then as far as how they make decisions, they're going to make decisions a lot differently. So fishing where the fish are, for example, in my business, as a professional speaker and business consultant, I know that my market is on LinkedIn and it's on YouTube because I'm B2B, and those are the 2 places. So I use YouTube to establish social proof and credibility and to position myself or my companies that I work with as a leader, and also for traffic because since YouTube is owned by Google, if you don't leverage YouTube properly. So fishing where the fish are means be present on YouTube. For me, business to business, be present on LinkedIn. If you're business to consumer, then you're going to want to use Facebook more effectively. So fishing where the fish are basically means spend your time on the mediums where you know your market hangs out, as opposed to saying, Andy and Melinda, well, you should be on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube and Pinterest and Google Plus and Instagram. Yeah, but no one has the bandwidth to take care of all those. So in short, you need to know what your message is, who your market is, which we now if you're aiming at millennials, and then how do they make buying decisions. In general, millennials are going to be more optimistic. They like groups. They have tons of friends. They're diverse. They like causes. What were they defined by? Well, what was going on during millennials? Well, they had the internet. They grew up with it. The dot-com boom and bust, the fall of the Berlin Wall, school shootings, soccer moms, the sex scandals, 9/11, social media. They've had a lot of things going on that have defined how they look at things. So here's some tips, Andy. When buying, they're looking for entertainment, retro, something authentic. They're tech savvy. They're prematurely affluent. They like low prices and they want it fast. They want high quality and they want variety. They're not brand loyal. In other words, when I say olden days, I'm 53. So, when I grew up, it was a little bit different. Now you have to change your approach. They have a very short attention span because they're in a get it fast, get it now world.
How about other generations? If you're targeting the older, the boomer generation, what then are you trying to do?
Well, the boomer generation, they're looking for meaningful experiences. Someone once said that they work for success, where millennials they work so that they can have fun. So it's a different motivation. So among that group, anything that's going to help them save time, they value their time and they value their money. So I know that you'll say, well, everybody does that, but not necessarily. So anything that's going to make a boomer's life easier or reduce their stress, or the message that's going to do that. So, if you take ASI, I'm looking for welcome kits right now for my business because we sell websites, and our website projects start anywhere from the $20,000 to $40,000 range. So I want to be able to create a welcome gift for them. I want to create a gift that I can give them when I'm done with the project. And I don't want to just send them cookies. I want something more creative. And my clients, if they're spending that much. So I want to work with someone, that has, promotional product specialties experience to help me craft what would be the package that would be best for me to give to my top-end clients. And then what would the package be that I would send out to my prospects that I want to get as new clients?
So, Ford, let me ask you. We put this topic on our Facebook page yesterday, and we had some interesting chatter, and it surrounded the idea of stereotypes. And basically, how do you avoid stereotypes? And somebody wrote in an interesting comment. I tend to be annoyed by marketers that try to classify me by my age or gender, and then market to me based on what I'm, quote, supposed to be like. So, how do you, when you're doing this kind of generational marketing, how do you avoid kind of wading into stereotypes and almost not showing that to people that you're targeting?
Because some stereotypes are real, right? But then, some people have objections to being classified.
Sure.
Well, I would say it's like any good marketing. I mean, my definition of marketing isn't manipulation. It's not trickery or hype. It's giving people enough information that they can make informed decisions. So I don't tend to, while I teach and promote programs on generational marketing, it's important that organizations consider that as one of their strategies. But really, my strategy goes beyond that to what's the intent? What's the buyer's intent? So, for example, if they're a leader in their company, their intent is probably to get it done. If they're analytical, then it's to get it right. If they're, if they're a great staff person or worker, they're interested in reducing conflict and getting along. So I tend to look at not only the generational markets, but I also look at the behaviors and the styles. And so, you test, you track, you modify, and repeat. So if you're formulating a campaign, you need to take into consideration what you've learned in the past. What have you learned? What have you tested? If you're doing a new promotion and you've got 5,000 people on your list, send it to 500 and see what was your open rate if it's an email campaign. What was your conversion rate if they're watching a video? If you're doing a video landing page. In other words, you need to test. So you're going to take all your experience. You're going to make the best decision you can based on your history and learning about your marketplace. And then you're going to offer the most compelling message based on what action step do you want that person to take. Where most people fail guys, is they just try to put the same message to everybody, and it just doesn't work. So targeting your market with unique messages helps, but it doesn't mean that you're putting your market in little boxes.
Sure. That makes sense. Now, we've talked a little bit about millennials and boomers. Let's talk for a minute about Generation Xers, which I think Andy and I both fit in. Are there certain kind of assumptions or special ways that we would want to target Xers in a marketing campaign?
Certainly. If I was targeting Xers, so let's say Xers are, age 36 to 47, there's almost 50 million of them. Their mindset is they're somewhat cynical, they're pragmatic, and they're pessimistic. What was their lives defined by? Well, the fall of the Berlin Wall, working mothers, the energy crisis, the PC revolution, Watergate, the Iran hostage crisis, stock prices, AIDS, celebrity focus, grunge. I mean, what was going on when they grew up? Well, when buying, they want straight talk, they want proof, and they're not brand loyal. So if you try to, if they have a high BS detector, which means belief system, but if they have a high BS detector, and they can tell BS a long ways away. So if you're any hypey with them, you'll probably lose them as a prospect.
Yeah, so a lot of those traits definitely apply to Andy Cohen. We call him Captain Killjoy.
There you go, right?
All right, well, let's talk we've talked a little bit about social media marketing. And you talked about all the different types of platforms out there, Pinterest versus Twitter and such. In general, are there certain rules of thumb on what attracts each generation, which types? I know, I have teenage daughters, and they use Instagram and Twitter. They don't use Facebook. Are there kind of general popular mediums for each generation?
Yeah, they're definitely popular mediums for each generation, and that goes back to the comment of fishing where the fish are. But to really explain it, because even by the time that people listen to this or re-listen to this, things are going to change.
Sure.
So rather than getting focused on one medium, here's really the concept. All social media websites are just databases. They're just databases. And if you start to back up and you look at it as a whole, Facebook is a database, Instagram is a database, Pinterest is a database, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're just databases, and each database has a different purpose. So what can you do with a database? Well, you can have a profile, you can share content and search content and learn, and then you can interact, and you can pull reports and export. So if you think about it like a database, then you back up and say, okay, what's the main purpose of that tool? What is the dynamic of that tool? Because they're all changing. YouTube is trying to become a community, right? So they're trying to become Facebook. Facebook's actually trying to become search, and now Facebook's competing with YouTube for video, and they've made some huge advances now. So if someone's posting video to YouTube, it used to be you posted a video to YouTube, then you would post it to Facebook with a link. Well, now you don't want to do that. Now you want to post the video directly on Facebook, because Facebook favors sites or profiles that put their own video up as opposed to linking them, because they don't want to send the traffic off to YouTube. So everything's changing. So the biggest summary here is this. Each generation uses a different tool, but you just have to sit back and keep in mind two things. They're just databases, so don't get seduced by technology. Don't get scared by it. Spend 20 minutes on it, and you'll learn. You can learn a lot about how that medium works, because the new medium that hasn't even been produced yet, that will come out in the next 90 days or whatever, it's going to change. So as a marketer, your job is to fish where the fish are, pay attention to those communication tools, and remember that they're just databases. So if you approach it from, how am I using this to communicate? Am I using it for customer service? Am I using it for sales? Am I using it for prospecting? What's the point? What's my outcome? I always like to stay outcome first. So just real quickly, YouTube, everybody should be using YouTube because it establishes credibility. Everybody, and every speaker, every marketer, every company in ASI should be using YouTube for product reviews, lead capture, and so forth. Facebook is a whole different tool for how it communicates. If you're selling and you're making sales calls, whether you're doing in-person sales calls or through the phone or through any other medium, you should do what I call the 3x3. Spend 3 minutes, Google the person, and then go to LinkedIn and see what you can learn before you make that call. Because the most embarrassing thing is, Melinda and Andy, I don't know if you've had this in your experience, where someone calls you and they're trying to sell you something, and they don't even know what you do. They haven't even spent 10 seconds to even find out what you do. I mean, I'll have people call me and say, hey, Ford, I can help you get top 10 rankings in Google. And I'm like, have you Googled me? Do you know what I do for a living? I mean,
yeah, that happens
it's kind
a
of
lot.
funny.
So, Ford, speaking about fishing where the fish are, a lot of people today, both in business and consumer, are increasingly using their cell phones and their tablets to make buying decisions. So, as far as mobile marketing is concerned, that's obviously gaining steam. What techniques in the mobile marketing area do you think are best?
Well, it's really important you brought that up, Andy, because Google has just announced that in the next 2 weeks, actually it's the next week, that they're making a huge change to their algorithm. This is the biggest change since Penguin and Panda. There's actually more traffic accessing the Internet right now through mobile devices. August of last year, 2014, mobile traffic actually surpassed desktop traffic. So those businesses that, A, don't have their website mobile enabled are going to lose huge rankings and huge traffic. Mm-hmm. So it's an action step. All the listeners should get their cell phones out, Google themselves, Google their company, look at what shows up in Google on the Google footprint, on the mobile footprint, and then they should also look at their website on a mobile device to see how their website shows up. Now, if you have to pinch and zoom, it's not mobile. Just because it loads on your mobile phone, if you can't read it, it's not mobile. So first thing, check it on mobile. Second thing, think about the user experience. What do they want? Are they wanting 10 tips to grow their business? So are you going to have a lead capture on that mobile device so that when they get there, they immediately know what to do? The whole user experience has changed. As as we all are listening to this, we all use our phones for this. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you go for the next question, is cell phones aren't used to make calls anymore. The number one purpose of a cell phone is texting. The second one is email. The third one is accessing the Internet. And the fourth thing is actually making phone calls. So, how many times have you seen people at a table where they're texting people? They're not calling anymore. So you have to rethink your marketing strategies and your mobile experience and ask yourself, if someone finds me, and if it's a lead, I'm in an elevator and Andy says, you should call this company. Well, if I look them up on a mobile device and I don't have a good mobile experience, they've lost that lead.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, we talked earlier a little bit about marketing to millennials. What are some common mistakes or faux pas that people make when marketing to that group of buyers?
I would probably just say being more aggressive, not building the relationship first. I would build trust and credibility with them. They expect to get more things for free. They expect to get more information. So listening to them is important. There's 4 different levels of social media interaction, and the first level is consumption. So what are you giving them to consume? The second level is sharing. What are you giving them that they can share with other people? The third thing is that they will comment. So are you engaging them? Are you doing anything to ask for feedback? Are you listening to their feedback? Are you responding to that feedback? And then the fourth level is where they actually go create content. So if they buy a product or service, they will be compelled to actually create a review or talk about their experience. So their dynamics, they're less resistant to sharing their opinion. And so a faux pas would be where you're overly aggressive or you're making too many assumptions. Giving them a choice and letting them feel in control of the buying process usually works out big.
Great.
All right, Ford, before we let you go, we just wanted to finish up with maybe some general type tips for people looking to improve their marketing efforts this year. So what do you think is the one tip you can give to promo product distributors to improve their marketing efforts in the coming year?
First thing I would say is they need to mystery shop themselves online and mystery shop, call their phone numbers and ask how see how their business is actually handling leads. Second thing I would say is lead magnets. They need a lead magnet. A lead magnet is something you're giving away for free in exchange for information. So, for example, if I got a recording of today's radio interview, then that could be a lead magnet. I could use it as an email campaign and say, listen to my interview on ASI Radio where I talk about generational marketing. Well, that's a lead magnet. Now, if people get that through email and then they want to listen to that, they click and they go, either I'm going to give it to them for free or they're going to be able to opt in, and now they're on my list, and now I can drip on them to give them some valuable information. But I would say the biggest things are mystery shopping, so that you know how well is your business really handling leads. What are you doing to get new leads? And then some type of nurture campaign. And, the biggest thing I've seen, the two biggest problems, and I'll end with this, are, one, not responding to leads fast enough. So if you do get a lead, are you responding quickly with some type of contact point? And then apathy after the sale, where they make a big account and they sell an account, but they never follow up with the company. They don't get reviews. I mean, and this is something that I said even at the ASI shows when I was speaking. I said, look, how many people that have delivered a product to your customer, whether you're shipping it to them or whether you're delivering it locally in your market, are bringing your cell phone with and taking testimonials and building social proof. No one's hand went up, and I was just amazed. 250 people in the room, and I'm like, no one's capturing testimonials. What kind of follow-up process do you have? Very few had a follow-up process. So there's some quick tips for you.
All right. Well, that's great advice today from Ford Six, President and CEO of Prime Concepts Group. Ford, we're going to see you again in Chicago. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so Ford will be speaking at ASI Chicago in July. Sign up for the show at asishow.com. Thanks so much, Ford, and have a great day.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Melinda.
Take care. All right, lots of good food for thought from Ford Sakes this morning. We talked a little bit about millennials, and Andy, I think you have some further things that you should not do when marketing to millennials. Is that right?
So there's a article we found here that we'll post to our website at asicentral.com/radio, which will give you some more information. But there are some myths that people use when marketing to this website, and it's things that they should probably to this generation, and it's things that they should probably avoid. So let's cover some of those, and you'll see what they are. The first is essentially marketing to the belief that millennials don't really have a lot of disposable income, and here we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds, and essentially those people, that generation, there is some disposable income there, especially for influencers. Product influencers have some disposable income. So the first myth of marketing to this generation is to use gimmicks or discounts. That's really not what you want to do. They do see through that, and they're very aware that if a brand or a product has to discount to get their attention, then they're thinking it's probably not really good. So you don't want to just use gimmicks or discounts to catch their attention, because actually that could do the opposite and turn them off. So be careful with those. Kind of along those lines is millennial influencers tend not to jump on the millennial-focused product or the millennial-focused offering. So this is like one of our Facebook followers said. Essentially, they don't like to be marketed to by their age or by their grouping, and so you have to be careful with that. There was a study recently with over 1,000 participants showing that only 2% of millennial influencers wanted subcompact cars. Yet a lot of auto companies are actually marketing their subcompact car offerings straight to millennials, being in the areas that millennials are as far as media is concerned. And that's essentially wrong. So don't go on the assumption that they want the smaller or less expensive offering. That's not necessarily what they want. The third myth is that social is key. It's not necessarily true, as Ford was talking about. Social media and social activity for brands is important when targeting millennials, but you don't want to just get on social because you think you're supposed to be there because millennials are there. They tend to see through that. Really, not social is key, but authenticity is key. Millennials will buy from what their friends and their contacts are talking about and what they're espousing. So you really want to create experiences, either social or otherwise, that get people in the millennial generation talking about your brand or espousing the brand for you. That's really where the word of mouth comes in, and that's the really effective thing that brands are finding when it comes to marketing to millennials.
Those are some good points. And we talked a little bit earlier with Ford, and this is just kind of an interesting thing, about stereotypes of people from different generations. I think one stereotype we've heard is, that older people don't use social media, and that's definitely not incorrect. A recent study by Pew talked about, what percentage of each age group use social media.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest group, not surprisingly, 89% was in the 18 to 29-year-old group. But in the 30 to 49-year-old group, 78% of people use social media regularly, and 50 to 64, 60% use it.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what percentage over 65?
46.
Oh, very good. 43%.
Oh,
Now,
close. How
obviously
about
they
that?
use all different things,
Sure.
Facebook, Pinterest, and I think Ford's comment about fish where the fish are, you really need to find out which ones your customers or prospects are engaged in and go after those. You can't, you don't need to be on 12 different platforms and kill yourself trying to do that. But, perhaps there's two that work best for your audience.
Right. And this translates as well to the business-to-business buyer too. We talked a lot about the consumer
Absolutely.
buyer, but those same generations are in every workplace as well. And if your buyer is of a millennial age, even though they're buying for their company, they're still actively on these social networks for both a consumer and business-to-business purpose. So make sure you are finding out where your target audience is.
All right, well, we're going to end today with a couple social media don'ts. I've got a list of 10 we're going to post online. We'll talk about a few of them today before we go. One social media don't that a lot of companies, unfortunately, don't listen to is to ignore your audience when they're complaining. We've seen lots of examples of this. I guess Chapstick recently had a big issue where some people complained about something and they just deleted their comments, which is a don't. Do not delete comments. How would you handle that situation, Andy Cohn?
Well,
If
I
someone's
think
complaining about your service or product.
if people are complaining on social, you have to respond immediately.
Absolutely.
Because like we were talking about with word of mouth, that's the kind of thing that gets legs really fast. So the best thing is to respond as quickly as possible and try to work out some sort of solution to the problem, or at least offer whatever help you have. However, I will add a caveat to this, and I think a lot of big brands are falling into this trap, which is their customer service offline is not so great. So their customers are having issues dealing with them. Customer goes to social media to complain, which is you go to Twitter or Facebook and call out the company. Their social media people are on it like that, but they're not really equipped to help. They offer the sort of canned, what can we do to help you? But then they're not really doing anything to help because it's the customer service organization that needs to provide the help, which then is not good. So I just saw a string about, I'll call them out, Time Warner Cable. Yesterday I was following a string of people on Twitter that had this exact problem. And the social media of Time Warner Cable was like right on it, and they quickly responded, how can we help? And they say, well, basically you can get your customer service people to respond to me because they're not.
And they're just not able to do that.
Right. And so there's a disconnect between actual customer service and what's going on social media outlets. And that causes a problem. Right.
Yeah, that's a deeper problem. I remember this a couple of years ago, we're on the Consular Road Troop. You tweeted out you did not like the Hampton Inn orange
juice. Yes, well,
juice.
that was somewhat of a joke.
But you tweeted
yes.
out like, "Dear Hampton Inn, I hate your orange juice" or something like
right.
that. And someone from their social, media department, you had hashtagged or something, got back to you immediately.
Right.
But then, were you ever followed up with customer service? Because I think
I was not.
They said they were going to follow up with you.
Yeah, in that case I wasn't. In another case I was. I had an issue with a mortgage company, and I called out Citibank, and they actually did tie in their customer service to that. Their social media person who responded, got a customer service person on the line, and kind of quickly got back to me, and that was interesting. That was tied together. But if they're not tied together, it's where you have a problem.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. They have to be tied together.
Yeah. So.
Two other quick things. One is one mistake companies do is that they assign an intern or someone at their company to get on 10 different social networks. Get us a Pinterest account, get us an Instagram account,
right.
And then they just sit there and collect dust and do nothing. So
Not
if you're going to establish it, do something with it because people are going to go to it, see that you have nothing, and then that's
right. Totally.
That's not good. And the last thing is to not have a nameless and faceless presence on social media. A lot of companies get on there, but the whole thing is you want to build relationships and show personality. So if you've got someone who's, really opinionated that you want to blog or is going to give you kind of a personal touch, that's much, much better, obviously.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're going to put these online at asicentral.com/radio. And we are out of time. Thanks to everyone for listening, and have a fantastic week.